Are you polytheistic?
I'm actually atheist.
Atheist,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I was raised in a monotheistic.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. It's like a whole thing, honestly.
Okay, so if you don't mind me asking, how did you move from monotheism to atheism?
Sure, yeah. That's a good question. So I think it just kind of, one day I'm just looking up and I just realized I couldn't get, even though I want to be like monotheistic, honestly, I'd like to believe that there's purpose to everything. And, that's a big thing that I think about a lot. But, I just decided that I couldn't get myself to rationally believe that it was all created by one thing. I don't object to the idea of something existing higher than 3 dimensions and like governing anything. I just don't necessarily think I agree with the idea that they would have a set of rules, a set of like very, not arbitrary, very almost arbitrary, not to demean them or anything, but stuff like don't have sex, it would be more of a bigger picture kind of thing. Like they almost deism, but not really. I don't know if that makes sense. I can't articulate this well at all, so I apologize. But
No, you're doing a good job. It's hard. I know it's hard.
Yeah, and I was just wondering because I just looked up the cause thing like 5 minutes ago. Yeah, and so I thought it makes sense in some ways, in the sense that I couldn't comprehend something where you need something to make something, but then that's like a whole loop in itself. So like the first thing, so the uncaused cause thing makes sense in that way, and I understand why they've been presenting the argument for so long. But I was just wondering what your opinions are of like multiple uncaused causes.
Right.
Like that. Yeah.
Okay, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you say was, you believed in God, and then one day you just realized, I can't believe in God rationally.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what were you looking for, rationally? What's the standard that, needs to be met before you believe in God?
I honestly don't know, but when I say one day, I mean, it didn't really happen in one day. It was just like a progression. I slowly started to question. Honestly, just a lot of it happened to when I found out how the eye developed through natural selection. How it just started from something that just recognized light, reacted to it, and eventually it just optimized slowly. But they tracked the whole progression of it. So it just makes, if something as complicated as the eye could be just achieved through randomness, directed randomness, and I figured that it could happen to everything. A billion years, or 15 is a ridiculous amount of time. So.
Okay, but I like the way you said it. Directed randomness. So who's doing the directing of the eye?
It's directed in the way that if something doesn't work, there's no reason why it would stay. So if you have an eye that doesn't do anything, there's no reason that genetic code, and this can apply to past genetics also, there's no reason why that genetic code would be passed down because it doesn't do anything. It could be detrimental. So if you have an eye that works, that'll get passed down because that's useful. I can see something and react to it. And back then it wasn't I see a piece of food. It's more light probably assumes that there's some kind of food there, so I'll swim towards that or something.
Right.
And so, yeah.
And I agree with you. The eye that works gets passed down. The eye that doesn't work is obliterated, right? Okay, but the question still remains, how do you get an eye that works? I know there's a process, but is it not more reasonable to believe that behind the process there's an intelligent mind than to believe that behind the process of the development of the eye is just random?
No, I mean, I agree. I understand that both points of view exist, and I don't necessarily discredit either one. I personally just choose to believe that randomness can't do that.
Why?
Because it's taking a lot of animal behavior. I don't know. It's not the best. It just they've done a good job tracking it, honestly. And and so the fact that they have mapped out how certain things arise just makes me think the whole thing's possible.
Okay, if I map out for you the process that camera went through in order to become a camera, does that mean that there's not a rational mind behind the camera?
Well, if you could, the difference, I guess, would be in this sense. I mean, that does make sense. It definitely makes sense. It's just, there's no way to prove that someone, built everything, I guess. I mean, I can prove that someone designed that camera. That's not a hard thing to do at all. It's easier to just, assume it was random than to assume that someone did a random directiveness. to make sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, but you see, here's my problem with that line of thinking. My problem is everything in my observation, everything in my experience tells me the sweater comes from a tailor. The camera comes from a mechanic. The automobile comes from a mechanic. The delicious meal comes from a chef. The building comes from an architect and a builder. I never observe order and design coming about randomly by chance. So then, when I look at the human eye, which puts that camera to shame in terms of complexity, is it more reasonable for me to believe that behind this eye there's an intelligent mind, or is it more reasonable, not that I can prove anything, I can't, I cannot prove anything, but the question is it more reasonable, is it more plausible for me to believe that behind this eye there's an intelligent mind, or is it more reasonable to believe behind this eye is chance and fate?
That's actually why it would not surprise me at all if it turned out to be like self-existent, like before time, if that even makes sense. It wouldn't surprise me at all. It's why I don't say I'm a strict atheist. It's very like, I don't know, for me the reason I wouldn't call myself religious is because I don't believe that if such a thing existed, that it would make like a doctrine that's saying, I mean various religions have their own rules, but that's fine.
Okay, but then let's think about that quickly. If there is an intelligent mind who created your eye, my eye, your central nervous system, your brain and mine, then if this creator wanted to reveal himself to you and to me, it would behoove him to speak language that we could understand.
Sure, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And it would behoove him to reveal himself because we are not smart enough to figure it out. See, that's where Jesus Christ comes in.
I think I might disagree on that last point. I think that I don't know. I think that we have the potential to figure it out, like through time. I really do, yeah.
All right. Yeah. And then try, do you agree with this? Now watch this.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Cliff. What's your name?
Carrie.
Ann?
Carrie. And what?
Mary?
Carrie. Like I carry my books to school.
Susan. Okay, not only am I being rude to Carrie, sorry, Carrie. Not only am I being rude to Carrie, I'm being incredibly off the charts arrogant.
Okay.
Why? I'm assuming that I'm intelligent enough to figure her out. I can't. If I'm going to have a friendship with Carrie, I'm going to have Carrie reveal to me who Carrie is. And if I stand here saying, Susan, great to meet you. And Susan, you can jam a basketball forwards and backwards. Let's go play hoop together. And Susan, you have $1 million and you'd like to give me 100,000. Thank you so much. That's totally dishonest. I'm parting company with reality. In order to have the privilege of getting to know Carrie, I have to be humble enough to allow Carrie to reveal to me her name, what she likes, what she dislikes. Otherwise, I'm never going to have the privilege of getting to know Carrie. If that's true between Carrie and me, how much more true it is between God and me.
No, I completely agree with that. I just think the method of like introducing it is like learning about everything, like going out, like finding. I think like the answer is out there. I don't think it's as simple as being written down to us. I think it's like we have to really work for it, like really work.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my opinion.
Okay, good. Well, and that's exactly what Jesus said. Jesus said, "Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened. For everyone who asks receives, he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks the door shall be opened." So if you spend 4 years getting a degree here, for at most a 60-year career, it would behoove you to check out this Jesus because he talks about eternity.
Yeah.
That's a long time. You're spending 4 years here at this fine university to prepare for at most a 60-year career. It would be very wise to consider eternity. And Jesus talks about eternal life.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't expect that I'm going to, when I say like, we'll figure it out, or I think we can figure it out, I'm definitely not referring to myself. I'm referring to people like, way down time-wise, like millions of years or something. So, yeah, like, I'll get a 4-year education to do whatever I'm going to do, and then, I'll die, and then maybe I'll maybe I'll go to heaven, maybe I won't, I have no idea. But I think that the answer is not like I will find the answer. I think it's possible to find. I don't think I'll do it. I think it's going to be in the future, but I do think it's possible.
Okay, but here's the crazy message of Christ. The crazy message of Christ is God loves you and wants to know you today. Which means either Jesus is blowing smoke or he's speaking the truth. And if he's speaking the truth, wow. So shouldn't that motivate you to read the Gospels, to check out?
I've read the.
All right,
Yeah.
what have you concluded about Jesus after reading the Gospels?
I mean, I think one of my really good friends, he's Christian, and so I went to seminary with him and stuff like that to see, really get to know his lifestyle and everything and his beliefs. And there's a lot of amazing messages in the Bible and all the
Okay, what did you conclude about Jesus after reading the Gospels?
I agree with all the messages. I just don't necessarily. This is the whole thing where like I just can't get myself to believe that that's a divine thing. I think he's, in my opinion, and I definitely see why people disagree with him. I think, in my opinion, he was an extraordinary man who brought a lot of love to him before he was dead.
Okay, now, I'm not going to refer to you, but we'll talk about these other students who happen to go to the same university as you do. You say, I can't believe. The problem is, all of us believe something.
Yeah.
Right? All of us are motivated people. You would not be at this fine university if you weren't motivated. Now let's consider the options to Jesus that are being considered. Obviously, we know that a bunch of us here, I just was told in the business school especially, understand exactly why we're here. We understand exactly the purpose of our lives. Make money, get power, and enjoy physical pleasure. That's a faith position. That's a belief. The belief is money, power, and pleasure, that's the purpose of life. I think you can see through that option, right?
I mean, I personally don't agree with it, but
Okay, good. But a lot of your very intelligent fellow students do agree with that, right? That's what they're living for. Okay, now what I would encourage you to do is to say, okay, some very intelligent friends of mine are really committed to money, power, and pleasure. That's what they're living for. Pedal to the metal, no question about it. You can see through that and say, whoa, that belief is pretty hollow, pretty superficial. Not that there's anything wrong with money, nothing wrong with money, nothing wrong with power, nothing wrong with pleasure. Those are all gifts from God, but they make lousy gods. Okay, so now, please ask yourself, what am I living for? Because obviously you wouldn't be a student here unless you were pretty motivated. And what's the evidence that what I am living for is reliable? Those two questions, right?
Yeah, okay.
What am I living for? I'm not going to go to the business school and join those other rascals who think, oh yeah, the bottom line is money, power, and pleasure. I'm not going to go with a bunch of fraternity guys that say, no, it's not money and power, it's just sex, pleasure. I'm not going to go that way either. There's got to be more to life than that. So how do you go?
So the first question is not like why I'm doing everything. That's just I want to be a doctor, I guess.
Great.
And so I don't know. I think the field is amazing. It's really interesting, and you also, I mean, the best part about it is just seeing a patient walk in with something, seeing them walk out like a month later completely fine, with no long-term effects. I volunteered at the hospital, and there's a patient that I got there on the first day, and he left like a week before I was done with my internship, and just seeing him was one of the best feelings I've ever had.
Awesome.
And so that's what I live for, in the sense that, I mean, it's also really interesting though. I mean, I wouldn't do it if I was dead bored of it, I think. I'm not sure on that one, but I'm lucky enough where I actually really enjoy that.
Great.
And so, could you remind me?
What's the evidence that the purpose of your life is to be a doctor?
Yeah, I actually have no idea. I don't know if that evidence straight up exists.
Right.
But yeah. That's my personal philosophy, is it's worth it, but there's nothing to prove that it means anything, like, at all. So, in my opinion.
Yeah, I respect you intellectually. But that's scary, isn't it?
It's I completely agree. But it's also kind of cool. I mean, you see, it's just amazing. Like, everyone can be whatever they want, and you're not bound by anything, I feel. You can really just push yourself in whatever direction you want, and I think there's something really cool in that.
Okay, but wait a second. Here's the scary part. The scary part is, ultimately, It doesn't matter whether you're a doctor who helps dying people live or whether you become a terrorist and murder people. You can choose whatever you want to.
Yeah.
And it's ultimately meaningless. Because it doesn't matter whether you're a terrorist or a doctor, according to your worldview.
It's funny, I had this conversation, like, not even...
Good, I'm glad you did. And you see, I'm standing here saying, you know better than that. You know that to be a doctor and help dying people live is really good. And being a terrorist is really evil. And you see, that's one of the most powerful pieces of evidence that God exists. These moral absolutes, these objective morals that you are living out as you go to med school and as you help people live instead of die. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I guess if there is such a thing as an objective moral, which I'm not saying there isn't, I'm just wondering, like, kind of devil's advocate, I guess, why would people be something objectively bad? That, like, I personally believe that people are intrinsically good, and so I wouldn't believe that someone would intentionally do something morally bad for the sake of doing it morally bad.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a pretty optimistic view.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah.
You're quite the optimist. Yeah.
What? And it's just, I don't know, I do believe that there is obviously, there's better worth of being like a doctor, like a farmer, or anything, over being like a terrorist or something.
Right.
Just because, and then my personal belief is, since I do believe the answer I said earlier is out there somewhere, if there is one, I believe we can reach it. I think that being a doctor is more helpful towards that. You help a lot of people,
Right.
and you overall bring humanity as a whole closer to finding out the answer if there is an answer. And so, yeah. Also, I'm interested in it, and it's really nice. I physically, even though I say all this big picture stuff, I can still appreciate someone getting better. I mean, I don't feel like I didn't lose my like individual humanity
Right.
in that whole thing. So,
Yeah. Okay, man, so I would argue you're close. You are really close to moving out of atheism because you are so committed to helping people as a doctor. In fact, you're working really, really hard to get an education so that you can be a doctor, so that you can help people get better. And I don't think you really believe that it would be just as legitimate for you to be a terrorist. I think you know better than that in the depths of your being. And then you're beginning to realize, whoops, that means I do believe in objective morals. And that means there's got to be some type of God. And by gollies, when I read the Gospels, I notice that Jesus was the consummate doctor. He went around healing the sick. He went around loving on people and feeding the hungry and clothing the naked. Boy, I wonder if there's some connection here. And then this guy who was this consummate doctor goes ahead and claims to be God revealing himself in human form. And he claims that God really loves you so much, he wants you to spend eternity with him beginning now. And for eternity in heaven, wow, maybe there's something more to this.
I'll think about that. So, thank you for your time.
Man, I can't thank you enough for talking the way you did. Thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot.